This is the story of Kyle, a YouTuber who vanished while searching for his next viral hit. It was Halloween night, a perfect storm for a spooky live stream. Kyle, an up-and-coming creator known for his edgy paranormal investigation videos, wanted to up the ante. He scoured the internet, not for a 5-star resort, but for the exact opposite. He found his target, a remote, run-down motel with a collection of 1-star reviews that read more like warnings than complaints. "Creepy staff," one said. "Felt like I was being watched," wrote another. But one review in particular caught his eye. It was a simple, stark warning. "Whatever you do, never, ever rent room 13. For Kyle, this was pure gold. A haunted room, a specific warning. It was the perfect clickbait cocktail. He knew his audience would eat it up. He packed his high-end camera gear, a couple of extra batteries, and a healthy dose of skepticism. The plan was simple: book the cheapest room, live-stream his experience, and debunk the motel's spooky reputation. When he arrived, the motel looked even worse in person. Rain was lashing against the grimy windows, and the neon sign flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows across the wet asphalt. The lobby smelled of damp carpet and stale cigarette smoke. An old, withered clerk sat behind the counter, barely looking up from his newspaper. "I need a room for the night," Kyle said, placing his camera bag on the counter with a thud. The clerk grunted, pushing a registration form and a tarnished brass key across the counter. The key was for room 12. "Actually," Kyle began, leaning in conspiratorially, "I heard you have a room 13. I'd like to stay there." The clerk's head snapped up. His eyes, cloudy and tired, sharpened with an intensity that startled Kyle. "We don't rent out room 13, he said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. "It's not available. Never is." Kyle wasn't going to be deterred. This was all part of the show. He pulled out his wallet, sliding a $100 bill onto the counter. "I'm a journalist," he lied, "doing a story on local legends. It would really help me out. Completely off the record, of course." The clerk stared at the money, then back at Kyle. For a long moment, the only sound was the drumming of the rain. Finally, with a deep sigh that seemed to carry the weight of years, he pocketed the bill. He rummaged under the counter and produced a single old-fashioned iron key, black with age. It had no number on it. "The rules are on the table inside," the clerk muttered, his gaze dropping back to his newspaper. "Don't say I didn't warn you." Kyle practically beamed. He grabbed the key, his camera already rolling to capture the creepy clerk and the forbidden key for his intro. He found the door, tucked away at the very end of a dark, narrow hallway, between room 12 and what looked like a supply closet. There was no number on the door itself, just faded peeling paint. He unlocked it. A wave of stale, cold air washed over him. The room smelled of old, decaying wood and something else. Something faintly like burnt incense or smoke. It was sparse. A rickety bed, a small table, and a single chair. On the table, a lone, thick white candle sat in a simple dish. Next to it was a small, handwritten sign. Kyle zoomed in with his camera, reading the sign aloud for his viewers. "Light it if you wish to stay." He chuckled. "Wish to stay. Guys, check this out. The production value on this place is insane. They're really committed to the gimmick." He sat down, set up his camera to face him, and hit the Go Live button. "What's up, Ghost Gang? It's your boy Kyle, coming at you live from the infamous Room 13, he announced, his voice echoing slightly in the small space. He explained the backstory, the creepy clerk, the bribe. His chat feed started scrolling, filled with excitement and spooky emojis. "All right, here's the deal," he said, holding up the candle. "The note says to light it if we want to stay. So, I guess we're staying." He produced a lighter, flicked it on, and touched the flame to the wick. The candle sputtered to life, its flame casting a warm, flickering glow that pushed back the oppressive shadows. The first hour was uneventful. Kyle told ghost stories, answered questions from his viewers, and made jokes about the peeling wallpaper. The stream was a success. Viewership was climbing. But the room itself was a letdown. Just a few flickers from the candle, some static on his audio feed. things he could easily attribute to the old building's wiring. He was starting to think the entire legend was just a marketing ploy. Then, his chat started moving faster. Much faster. "Kyle, who's that behind you?" One comment read. "Dude, there's a face in the mirror," another typed. "Look at the shadow on the wall." "Kyle, the shadow is moving." Kyle laughed it off. "Come on, guys, don't try to spook me. You know I'm tougher than that, there's nothing here." He swiveled his chair around, panning his camera across the empty room. "See? Just me, my camera, and this very boring, very not haunted." He trailed off. The chat was now a frantic waterfall of text. "It's not a joke. Behind you. Blow out the candle. Get out of there now. The candle, Kyle. Blow it out." His bravado started to crumble. The hair on his arm stood on end. The room felt colder. He turned back to his monitor, his eyes wide. He was about to tell his audience to stop trolling him when he heard it. It wasn't from the chat. It wasn't from outside. It was a whisper, soft and clear, seeming to come from right beside his ear. It was as if someone was leaning over his shoulder. "Blow it out if you want to leave." Kyle froze solid. His heart hammered against his ribs. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to run, but he was paralyzed by fear. He slowly, hesitantly, turned his head. There was nothing there. Just empty space and dancing shadows cast by the lone candle flame. He stared at the flame. It seemed to be burning brighter now, more intensely. The whisper came again, this time seemingly from within the flame itself, a sibilant hiss that coiled in the air around him. "Blow it out, if you want to leave." The voice was no longer just a whisper. It was a plea, a command, an invitation. Panic finally broke through his paralysis. With a trembling breath, he leaned forward and blew. The flame vanished. The room plunged into absolute, suffocating darkness. His live stream abruptly ended. The next morning, the motel owner sent the grizzled night clerk to check on the room. He knocked, but there was no answer. Using his master key, he opened the door. Room 13 was empty. The bed was untouched. There was no sign of Kyle, no camera gear, no backpack, no wallet. And on the dusty table, there was no candle. It was as if no one had ever been there at all. The police were called. They launched a missing person investigation. They questioned the clerk, who swore he never gave Kyle a key to any room 13. Confused, the investigators checked the motel's original blueprints, documents that dated back to its construction in the 1950s. According to the official plans, the motel had a room 12 and a room 14. There was no room 13, there never had been. The space between the two rooms was just a solid wall. Kyle was never seen or heard from again. His channel went dark, his last video an abrupt cut to black. But the story doesn't end there. To this day, on dark, rainy nights, especially around Halloween, guests staying in room 12 or 14 report a strange phenomenon. They see a soft, flickering light seeping from the solid wall between their rooms. And if they press their ear against the cold wallpaper, they can hear a faint, desperate whisper carried on the air. A familiar voice, forever trapped, saying, "Don't forget to light the candle." Thank you for watching. If you have any stories of places that shouldn't exist, share them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this dive into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next story. Stay safe out there.